Hello, everyone. This is Ellie Crumples with Freckle Education. We are very excited to bring you today's In My Classroom webinar. And I can see that we still have a few folks logging in. So I'm going to give them just another 30 seconds or so to join us, and then we'll get started. Alrighty. Again, welcome everyone. My name is Ellie Crumples and I am on the marketing team here at Freckle Education. We are super excited to bring you today's webinar. It's an In My Classroom series installation, and the title of today's webinar is Deep Diving into Freckle Data. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce our two presenters today who are both Freckle ambassadors. We have Ginger Pope and Sarah Emmerling on the live. And with that, Ginger and Sarah, I will turn it over to you.
All right. Hey, guys. Like she said, my name is Sarah Emmerling. Ginger and I are in North Augusta, South Carolina. I am actually a special education teacher, and our school has co-teaching models. So I have the pleasure of co-teaching in 4th and 5th grade math and ELA. So I spend almost my entire day in the gen ed classrooms supporting our students through an inclusion model.
And I teach 4th grade math and science. And this year, both of my blocks of math and science are gifted and talented students. And Sarah and I, in the past, have co-taught together an inclusion class, which was great, and how we got fired up about Freckle.
Yeah, that's where our love for being in with the pig started, I would say. What we're going to talk about today is really data. I know this is like kind of the introductory slide about adaptive practice, but Freckle is such an amazing tool for classes like GT and inclusion classes where you need to meet the kids on all of the different levels. So we wanted to just include this to remind you that that is one of the best features of Freckle, is being able to have the students work at their individual levels to get the remediation they might need in one domain and the pushing or the acceleration and enrichment that they might need in another domain.
Yes, and for me especially, like she said, with the gifted and talented students, as with all students, this time of year I have students working in 8th grade, statistics, algebra, some in 6th and 7th grade levels, and there is no way without this type of program that I would be able to work with these kids on that level. They're actually challenging me when they need help. When they don't get enough out of the video, then they come and we look it up together and we learn it together. So it's really great. The adaptive practice is awesome.
All right. One thing we wanted to do before we started is just give you guys an idea of what it looks like in our classroom so that you can kind of picture your own classroom as we go through the data. In the classes that I work in currently, the way we use it is the kids have to do the fact practice first, kind of build that fluency. But with my class, we work in the domain that we're currently working in. So for instance, we're in our fractions unit. I feel like we've been in it forever. But so the students are constantly working in that fractions domain just to keep those skills relevant and in the forefront of their minds. We use it mostly as a bell ringer for when the kids first come in, especially as they're transitioning like during that homeroom period. But we also use it in stations. It's often a technology station, and it's very driven with either they have an assignment that I've assigned them through Freckle, or they're working in that adaptive practice domain that we've asked them to practice in. So we know they have purposeful, meaningful instruction and practice going on in those stations, and they're not just all over the place playing.
And mine are the same. It does change from time to time. Sometimes it is a bell ringer activity. It is typically always one of my guided math stations in technology. They can do it on the iPad. They can do it on the laptops. They can do it on a regular computer. But we are doing, like Sarah said, and she's been working with 4th and 5th, we're doing fractions now, and I have almost all of mine working in the fraction domain. But in the past, when we were working on geometry, most of my kids were already beyond that level. They had picked up geometry pretty well, so they were working in a starred domain, an area where they needed more help, and so that's kind of how we've used it.
All right, so here's the meat and potatoes. We're going to talk about the reports that we use most often. Freckle has a ton of reports, and to be perfectly honest, you can get lost in how much data they have. It really is fantastic, and it allows teachers to pull whatever information they need at that time. So we're going to talk about our favorite reports. The first one is the report card, which I bet most of you have seen before. If you are new to Freckle, the report card that you see on your screen is different than the one that prints out. And I prefer the one that prints out. So this screenshot is actually, all of the screenshots, just so you know, are from our current students. And when you hit the print button, this is the report that pulls up. And I just find it easier to manage and quicker to look at for me. And the report card is great because it tells you where they started and it tells you where they are now. So you can see quickly and easily whether or not they've made any growth. As you can tell, this student has grown 2.4 grade levels in numbers in base 10, which is fantastic growth. If they've gone down, it'll be in red, which is good to know as well. And they haven't started measurement or geometry because we haven't gotten to those units yet. So I would expect to see less growth in those areas. It also tells you how many minutes the students are spending in each domain. So that's another way that you can target a student if they need practice in a specific domain. The last thing is down at the bottom, and it's got a chart and it shows you how many questions they've answered in the domain total, and that's the gray box at the top, and the color is how many are correct. We use that accuracy a lot. The first couple years we used Freckle, I don't think we focused on that near as much. We focused on how many coins. Well, then everybody knows your students are clicking and getting a bunch of coins. So now they have to meet certain accuracy standards before they can get any of the rewards or incentives that we use with the coin clubs. So that is something that we use a good bit. And I know I print this out once, I might say maybe once a month, every 2 months, and actually send it home for the parents.
I do too. And I always send it with interims and with report cards typically. And especially at the beginning of the year, once they have had time to take their initial assessments, to see where they are. It kind of is I don't know how you word it, but the kids realize that you are checking behind them and that you're seeing exactly what they're doing, which motivates them. And then when parents see that either they're not growing or they're working at a lower level than they know that they're capable of, then parents get behind it as well. And, my kids use it over the weekend. They use it at home. And I think that kind of ties in the whole homeschool connection.
Absolutely. And a great thing too, especially for the people who have school edition, congratulations, by the way, you can print this report card based on all sorts of different dates. I always print the year so that the parents can see the whole year's worth of growth. But if you want to just look at this week or last month, it's great for that too if you want a smaller snapshot of what the student is doing in Freckle. All right, we're also going to talk about the assessment report, and this is coming mostly for us from the school edition perspective. The assessment report is where you can assign a benchmark assessment to your students. I use it predominantly for progress monitoring. It is a great tool as a special education teacher because I can assign and give the same assessment to track a specific IEP goal. So for instance, these students had a fractions goal. So they had an IEP goal that had to do with making growth in the fractions domain. And it's a very easy way for me to check and track their growth to put on those interim reports and the report cards to the parents as I'm monitoring whether or not they're growing towards their IEP goal. You can get a lot of data from those assessment growth reports, including how long it takes them. You can break it down into what is their percentage of mastery per standard. And you can look at the growth. The growth report is really powerful. And I mean, in hopes, you're seeing growth every time you administer the assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So what we're going to do with our reports is kind of dive into them almost like layers of an onion. So we're going to take you to level 1, and then we're going to take you to level 2 and level 3. So level 1, when you pull up the assessment reports, is your whole class, and it's going to show you what time they completed it, how many questions, how long it took them, and what the percentage was. Obviously, our class didn't do so great on this one, but
it's reality.
But the thing for me that makes me happy as a teacher is that they all spent at least 20 minutes-ish on the assessment. The first time I give an assessment like this, I have kids in 4 and 5 minutes. And so that's when we have that conversation about this is just as important as any sort of worksheet or work that you get at the desk. It's the exact same thing, but with instruction moving towards computerized learning, they have to know it's the same. You have to hold them to the same standards. So that's one of the really big things I use. And it's also a good tool if you have a parent wanting to know why a student isn't making growth. If you pull out a report and say, well, they spent 4 minutes and 12 seconds on this assessment, they can't argue with that. So it's a quick snapshot of how your class is doing. Now, normally we would hope that your score would not be all red. They are nicely color coded into red, yellow, and green. But as you can see, this was also
very early in the year.
It was given in September, so they're all red, and we hadn't touched this stuff yet.
Yeah, I agree. I really have nothing to add with that. It is a really good report. I just recently got school edition. I had the free edition, so you don't quite have as much information with that. But it is a great tool to use.
And just, for your reference, if you're looking at assigning these, it's great because you can assign all of the standards, the specific grade level standards for that domain. So I could have assigned all of the fractions. I think this one's actually number sets, but I could have assigned all of the standards, or I can pick and choose the specific standards I want to test. And so that allows me really to customize the report and tailor it to the students. And with Freckle's ability to assign a report to the whole class or to individual students, it's as a special ed teacher, it's a fantastic way for me to do that progress monitoring that's so essential to see if they're making
growth. And Sarah is a tech geek. I mean, she gets it really easy. I am a little slower on the slower end, but this site is super easy. The reports are super easy. Assigning assessments for them is super easy. The drop-down screens work really well. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take long to play with it, and I wasn't afraid to play with the different things, and so that means it is super easy, very user-friendly.
Right. So that's level 1. Level 2 is if you wanted to look at a specific student. So I clicked on that specific student that had the blue arrow, and this is actually how that student did on this test. And I can go through and actually look at all 23 problems. I can see what the standard was that they covered it. And like I said, they color code it beautifully. So it's easy for you to see which standards they have mastered, which they haven't, and it shows you the accuracy. One thing that for whatever reason I didn't click on, or I didn't figure out very quickly, was why does he have 83% accuracy if it's just one question? The great thing about that is that's one of those multi-questions where the kids actually have to solve the answer choices and sort them into the appropriate boxes. Those types of questions that are becoming more and more popular where students have to really analyze the problem and analyze the answers before they select or answer or move them. So he got 83% of those 6 problems he had to solve correct.
Well, and then you've got some problems where there's more than one correct answer, which is also very nice because kids get trained in that fact of, okay, let me just eliminate these, and that's not real life and what they're going to see later on.
Right. And some of them don't fit into anything at all. So it's kind of weeding out those useless, or not useless is the wrong word, I guess, yeah, but those non-essential answers. And I love that it gives him 83% credit for that instead of all or nothing. It's not 0 or 100%. Because if a student's able to sort 5 of the 6, I'm good
That's
with
right.
that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's say I wanted to look even closer. We could go to level 3, which is where they will actually pull up the question, and that's what it looks like to the students. And that's one of the reasons that we love Freckle, and a reason, honestly, we've gotten so many teachers at our school to use it, because it's starting to mimic and look like those questions that are coming on all of those computer-based tests. So it's giving students that real-life practice of how to solve or how to even approach a question like that, because that's typically not how we've traditionally given students questions to solve. So it's really having them analyze the question a little bit more, and you can see what they see. And if they're all struggling with the same style question, it allows you to tailor your assessments and your checking for understanding to be more similar to these style of questions.
Yes, and it's also, just when I'm looking at this, a little off topic, but it also allows kids to help one another. And there are times I let them do that, and there are times that I don't. But when you get to a point where I have kids, like I said, at this higher level, when it tells them they can go talk to Amari, and Amari is working on the same thing, if I'm working with a small group, that's very helpful, and the 2 of them can actually sort through it together. And I mean, I think that's a wonderful feature.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, the next report we want to talk about is not really a report, it's the activity feed. And I'm going to be honest and say I didn't use it at the beginning. I was like, oh, whatever, it's showing me what my kids are doing. There is so much data in it. It's incredible. So we're going to show you how we use it. And again, we're going to kind of peel back the layers for you. So activity feed is located in your menu, and it's a current real time, here's what your kids are doing right this second. As far as the data you can gather from it, though, it's incredible. For the school edition, you can sort the activity feed the same way you sort report cards. So you can sort it for the year, the month, the week, last week. I think you can do it to the day, if I'm not mistaken.
You can.
But you can see specifically what the students are doing. So as you can see from the screencast, and like I said, these are all from our class within the past couple of months. It tells you really quickly how they're doing just with the color chart. And Ginger uses that actually in her class a lot.
I do it a lot, and I actually pull it up. We typically have Freckle Friday every Friday, where we celebrate how they do. And I pull the activity feed for the week. And I like to look at the top. It has a selection, and you're not seeing this on the screen, but it shows you who had the most correct questions, who had the most time practiced, and who had the highest accuracy. And we celebrate those students. Typically, it's 3 different students. It'll show you exactly how many questions they got correct out of how many, how long they practiced, and what the accuracy was. It'll also show you the least correct questions, the least time practiced, and the lowest accuracy. I don't announce those, but I do if it continues to be the same child over and over again. Then I speak to them, about what they're doing when they're actually should be working on Freckle. We also go through, look and see if they worked good and they worked great. We celebrate that. I mean, I do something like a clip up on Dojo, and it's called Freckle Fantastic. Class Dojo, they clip it up themselves. I think it's awesome because we're not always great, but good is good too. I don't like to see, okay's all right, but I don't like to see poor. And we don't see it a lot. Once they realized that I was looking and following behind them, they got a lot better at it. And when I have someone that's doing poorly, I'll go back and pull how long did they practice? What were they working? And I'll start looking at the questions. When they're working poorly and I go back and see that I've got a 4th grade student that's doing poorly on a 3rd grade standard that they should know, then, we have a conversation, and all of a sudden it becomes real to them that what I'm doing here, I need to focus more. I can do better than this. But it's a great one to use. When we came back from Christmas, I used the activity feed to see who had gotten on over the holidays. So it's one of my favorite tools, and I use it typically every week.
Yeah, we use this one a ton. Sometimes it's almost a daily thing. I believe this screenshot was actually the month of December. We were looking to see who had practiced over the holidays. It tells you how many minutes they practiced total and in what domains as well. So if a student is constantly logging on and just doing the fact practice, that's an easy conversation to kind of ask them to try some of the adaptive things or to practice somewhere else as well.
And one thing I discovered actually this week, when you pull up your activity feed, now I have 2 blocks of classes. So I have my 2 classes. I have a drop down so that I can separate them. It just works easier for me. You also have the drop down for the time period that you're looking at. But I found that, my co-teacher is doing some ELA with it. I teach math, like I said, math and science. She occasionally does some social studies with it, and I occasionally do science with it as well. So I actually changed my drop downs so that I could look at the activity feed for math only. You can have it so that it shows all subjects. You can have it so that it has math and science. You can change it around, but I did change it because I wasn't doing that before. And noticed that some were working on ELA, which is great, but I really wanted to focus in on the math. So that is something that I found very helpful.
That's a great point. We did the same thing in our class. I took out all the math so that we could look at the ELA scores alone. The time practiced on the ELA is extremely telling. So a couple of our students were spending 30 seconds or a minute on each of these assignments where they have to read 4 articles. So that is a conversation we had with a student. It's a conversation we were able to have with the parent. Another thing, actually, I'm going to go to level 2 so I can talk about this. So level 2, if you want to see just how one student is doing, you just click that name and you get a drop down of literally every time and date stamp of every single domain they work in and how long they're spending and the percentage that they're doing. Funny story, I was double checking how they were working and we came across a student who is our coin leader. And he continues to be our coin leader, even though we had to adjust some coins. He was going to bed and then waking up at 10:30 at night every night and working until midnight, 1 a.m. on Freckle.
Oh my goodness.
So we're able to catch that. I mean, as every parent out there knows, that's not, yay, I'm glad you love Freckle, but let's not do it at midnight.
No.
So we were able to talk to the parents and make sure that his iPad is now charged in their bedroom, not his. But it's just that small data and the things, well, totally makes sense why the student was falling asleep in class now. But like I said, you can pull up everything they're working, what grade level they're working on, and specifically what domain they're in. You can go even further. So you can actually click on each of those individual things and look at what he's doing. So if I look at this student, I can easily tell the thing he needed to practice was how many equal parts are in a shape. So I'm able to really analyze if he has some low accuracy on specific dates and times. I can go all the way down to what the assignment was that he was doing, just to better try and figure out how I can help him. All right, the last report we want to talk about is the grouping report. And we use it a lot to help with our stations.
I love this report. I have done same group levels and I've done mixed group levels. Basically, the way I use it for the most part is we just started fractions. So I went to this same type screen. I dropped down for number, sense, and fractions, and I put same level groups. And it shows me that my lowest groups are working, or my lowest kids are working at a third grade standard, and it shows you exactly what standard that is. You can even click on it if you want to see exactly what the standard states. And then the highest one I have are working in word problems division with fifth grade standards. So then I kind of take those groups. Unfortunately, I can't make each of those a small group, but I take those groups, and there's going to be another screen you're going to see too, but I take those groups and I have 25, 26 students. And so I usually have 5 groups of 5, may vary, may have a group of 6. And I put them into those 5 groups, and I typically have my lower group, which I'm going to always meet with first. My higher group's going to always be the last group that I meet with. The cool thing is these kids don't realize which is the high or which is the low, because last month when we were doing geometry, my kids that were low and that are low now in fractions were probably high, maybe midway with geometry. Totally changes it up. Now, there are some times you have to change personalities, so you have to move people around. But if you look at it, you know, I've got a core group working in a 4th grade level. Then I've got a core group kind of working above with the 5th, and then a little bit lower in the 3rd. So I can kind of play around with that. And it works great. We just changed groups this week, and it's always a highlight for them because they're like, oh, getting so bored of this one group. You can also do it where they're mixed level, and I have done that in the past. When I had an inclusion group, I had regular ed kids and my inclusion kids, and some of those kids were a lot higher, and we kind of mixed ability because they need a leader within them. They needed somebody that could kind of step up and help them do that. I found with GT sometimes I need to do that as well, because sometimes you have nothing but leaders. They want to take charge and they don't want any help doing anything. So sometimes that has to be changed personality wise. But typically I'll pull this up, and after we've worked on fractions for a couple of weeks, I'll go back and see how this has changed. It's also a great snapshot of exactly where they are within the domain.
Yeah, absolutely. And in an inclusion class, a co-taught class, the great thing is because Freckle assesses the 5 different domains and you can get the data reported differently, your student who may have a math deficit but is great at geometry because that's shapes and spatial, he's not always in that group. You know that the kids sometimes, if in a class like that, sometimes the kids know which kids are in the low group always. With Freckle, because it's differentiated so much, you're able to mix up the groups, and your kid who struggles gets to be a leader in this particular domain. So it's really great for kind of not losing sight of that kid who has a math deficit, but who is really great at geometry. So it's kind of that reminder of like, oh, yes, you can be in this group over here because you've got this.
Right. It also shows you can kind of see at the top where it's got the number, sense, and fractions. It shows you the current grade level that these students are working on, and they're working at 4th grade level, 7th month. And it shows you that is grade level growth, which is about a half year, which is awesome. And then the next one would be the questions answered, the average questions answered. It'll give you a snapshot of that for all of your domains. Now I'm getting some crazy domains. You know, I'm getting those middle school domains coming up there, which is blowing my mind. But it's a really good thing. It's really exciting for me because it's not hard to pull up. I can get it immediately, and I get super excited when I go back and look at it and see how much they've grown. Because you're going to see growth in each of those domains as the year goes on.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. There we go.
All
right.
Fun part.
So the fun part, the thing that's really awesome about Freckle and the thing that gets our kids on board is Freckle Friday for sure. We have Freckle Friday song and dance. Miss Pope and I look ridiculous some days. But we've gotten to the point at the school where we've got a bunch of teachers on board, and kids we don't know will see us in the hallway and be like, "It's Freckle Friday."
It's Freckle
So
Friday.
they're so excited about it. So we wanted to just for a minute make sure to tell you that it's a really easy way to incentivize learning, and we use the coin clubs to kind of track where they are. However, like I said earlier, they have to meet a certain accuracy before they get any of the awards or prizes. So wanted to throw some of our superstars up there. And like I said, Freckle's fantastic for a lot of things. Just a kind of a moment. The little boy in the corner with the black shirt, we actually got shirts made for our students. He was our school leader. He had the most coins of anybody in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and his accuracy was at 77%, and he's a special ed kid. So he has a math deficit, but because he worked so hard on it, he got rewarded because he was the one who did the best on this. And so it allows every student that same access to these awesome things. So I think that was like one of the, I got really teary-eyed when I presented that award because he's an awesome kid and he's getting an academic award
awesome.
for something like this. So please make sure that you're participating in those Freckle Fridays because the kids will get on board. Even the kids who don't know what Freckle is know it's Freckle Friday. So that's a really fantastic thing.
Yeah, we do a lot of fun things with it. It's there's a lot you can do with it. We've learned to not tone it down, but our prizes have gotten much smaller because they are really
They're
on target. And I've got my top kids, once they reach, I think it's above 40,000 coins, they're just competing for top within their grade level. I'm like tapped out.
Yes.
They can clip up on Dojo, Freckle Fantastic, and we will celebrate that. But we also look at who got the most coins for the week. Increase the most. That way you've got a kid that may only have 2,000 coins and another kid that's got 25,000. Well, they're not probably going to catch up with that. But each week, we expect to see them growing and working. And so we celebrate the top 3 coin getters of the week. We also celebrate the most accurate, the one that spent the most time, and also the one that had the most questions. And we have a bulletin board. That's an old one that you see up there where they had their little avatars, their little pigs and foxes and hippos. This year we're all about sports. So we've got field goals, and they've got football. So they move their football from which coin club they belong in, and they do that themselves. And just the physical thing of them going and moving a football, you'd be surprised how excited they get.
And don't you dare skip a Freckle Friday because they're going to call you.
No, they are.
Don't be sick on a Friday.
No, I know.
So we just wanted to kind of end on that high note. The kids really do get right on board with it. And I would have to say that Freckle is my go-to in class. It's one of the things that I love best, one of the tools that has been the easiest to implement and has just given me a tremendous amount of insight and data.
Yeah, I keep a big binder, Sarah will tell you, and it's just got all kind of data in it. And I love going back to it once I'm looking and seeing the growth that they've made. And they keep a notebook of their Freckle coins and how they're progressing. And so, each Friday or every other Friday, if it's crazy, they figure out, by the time we get to this point of the year, they actually figure out the difference between the coins that they had last week and the ones that they got this week, and how far they're moving up.
Yeah. So I think that's about all we have. Were there any questions that you wanted us to answer specifically?
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you, Ginger. This was a fantastic presentation. I want to allow everyone on the line to take a moment to enter their questions and comments into the chat box. So at the bottom of your screen, you'll notice that there is a dialog box. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in at this time, and we'll have a few moments to get to those. And I just took control of the screen here because one of the first questions that came up earlier was the difference between Freckle Teacher Edition and Freckle School Edition. So our free version is for anyone to use. Anyone can go online and create an account at any time. and it is free forever, so it does not require a subscription at all. We do have a premium version of our product called School Edition, and if you're interested in exploring that, you can find out more information at freckle.com/plans. But primarily, the main difference between the free and paid versions is that the paid version enables unlimited assignments and unlimited reporting and data. So that's the primary difference. Go ahead and check out our website for more information, and you can always email support@freckle.com for additional questions about School Edition as well. One of the attendee questions that has rolled into the chat box here is about the groupings report that you shared earlier. The question is, do you find that you most often create same or mixed level groups in your classroom? And can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yes. For me, I know I typically do same level groups. Again, a lot of that right now is because I do have a gifted and talented group, and I do have a group that's way beyond another group, and then I have a lower group. So I typically use that. I have done it the other way. I don't know what Sarah's doing currently right now.
Yeah, for us, we typically we use the same grouping report, but we do like a low, medium, a medium, and then a medium high group, so that there's a little bit of differentiation in the group. However, it makes, one of our stations is always the teacher station. So it makes addressing those deficits so much easier when the kids are closer to being on the same level. I mean, we all have, kids that can't work in specific groups with other kids, so we're always careful about that. But we use it because it drives all of the rest of the stations as well, and it really helps with that teacher station, so I can specifically target whatever aspect of the fractions that they're not getting. If they're not understanding how to find the common denominator, then all the kids who are not understanding that are in the same group.
Right, and that's the same with me. It's very pertinent right now. We're doing simplest form, reducing fractions, and I know that my two high groups are beyond that. They've already been finding a common denominator, comparing fractions, 3 and 4 fractions. They're adding unlike denominators. So, if I was to present that in front of my lower two groups, it would just blow their mind. So when I'm working with them, I'm working directly on the standard that they need help with, and actually backtracking a little bit so that they're ready, reminding them what GCF is, and least common multiple as well. So that's why it works for me right now, but I have used it in the other way.
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much for sharing. We're just about at time here, but I want to wrap up with one final fun question that I saw in the chat box. And that is, what is your personal favorite report in Freckle, and why?
My favorite is definitely the activity feed. And like I said, I was slow to get on board with it. It's just such a quick and easy way for me to look at what they're doing and kind of have a finger on the pulse of the classroom, because when students are in a one-to-one setting, which we're very lucky to be this year, when students are in a one-to-one setting, you don't always know what they're doing on screen. And it definitely is a level of accountability and incentivizing it and saying, hey, if you get a good or a great, they want that clip up in Dojo, and it doesn't cost anything, and it's completely intrinsic. So I think right now the activity feed is definitely the thing I use the most, and it's my favorite.
It is one of my favorites, but my favorite has to be the grouping. It just is a real fast snapshot of exactly where they are, what standard they're working at. I know a lot of times it's a big surprise to me, like, whoa. So it's definitely the grouping capability, and you can do that on your free, if you've got the free edition and not the school edition. That is one of the reports that you can still use.
Yeah, definitely. And just as a hack, if you do have the free edition, you are able to still get all of this data. You just have to do it more frequently. With the school edition, I can go back to whenever I want to whenever I want to. But you can still get all of this data, especially the report cards and whatnot. You just have to be more diligent about checking every Friday. And Ginger does have a gigantic binder, and she would print it out,
I'm a data nerd,
and that's
yeah.
how we would go through the data.
I would print out each week, because on Sunday when I had when I did not have the school edition, I do now, but when I did not have the school edition, had the free edition, I would print it out on Sunday, because the reports would run Monday to Sunday. And if I didn't print it out Sunday, I wasn't going to get that last week. So I would typically print it out on Sunday, and that would give me the whole week. And then I'd have it, right there.
Thank you both so much. This has been a very fantastic presentation, so much so that we're a little bit over time here, and the questions and comments continue to flow in. No, this is fantastic. What I want to wrap up with is a final announcement. It is the year of the pig, and we found out that National Pig Day is a thing, and it is happening on Friday, March 1st. We want to encourage everyone to participate in this Freckle Friday. So wear pink, have your students practice and Freckle in your classrooms. You can create some friendly competitions. Really, we just want to have a day of celebration and fun with Freckle. So please celebrate in whatever way you're most excited about, and share your photos on Twitter and Facebook, and you will receive stickers for your entire classroom. So we hope that you join us for this Freckle Friday. And again, thank you so much to our Freckle ambassadors, Sarah and Ginger. This has been an awesome presentation. So thank you both so much.
Thank you. This has been great.
Thank you. We had a good time.